Good afternoon, fellow baseball way of lifers. How we all doing? Happy Friday, TGIF. And it's only Stan musical days away from opening day. You're 6 days away from opening day, so I hope you're all psyched. The weather here in the Garden State, New Jersey is beautiful. It's about 70 degrees outside, which can only be one thing. Baseball is coming. Today we're going to continue our 30 and 30. We only have a few teams left, and we'll take us right up to opening day. And today we cover the New York Mets. Yes, it's time to meet the Mets. Meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the 2021 Mets. Yes, and that's what we're here to do. A lot has happened since last season. Last season was a little bit of a disappointment for the Mets. They finished under 500 and couldn't even make the playoffs, although 8 teams qualified in the National League. So let me tell you about the Mets offseason. I'll just throw a few names out there at you, or a few words out there for you. Steve Cohen, $14 billion. Sandy Alderson and Francisco Lindor will start things off in the conversation mode for us this afternoon. What a difference in renewed hope, faith, and optimism in the Met organization and Met fan base with Steve Cohen taking over. The Wilpon era is behind us. I'm not going to slam the Wilpons, although they probably should have sold a long time ago because they did what they could do under the circumstances. And people forget when they owned the team in the 2000s, mid to late 2000s, they were as big a spenders as anybody. I think even in 1 or 2 years, they may have spent as much or more than the Yankees, and they did put out a quality product on the ball field. They invested heavily in Citi Field as their new home. Unfortunately, the financial crisis in Bernie Madoff not only hit the Wilpons hard, but it hit all us baseball fans hard who are Met fans. And they were never able to compete financially like they once were with the big boys. They still tried to put out a good product, but they can never go beyond their means. And even in 2015, when they did win the World Series, Sandy got the most out of that team with 90 wins and taking them to the World Series, even though they had a great pitching staff. Pitching staff people thought would still be together to this day. But it just didn't quite work out for the Mets. But that's bygones, and we'll move on. Met country will move on, and they're embracing Steve Cohen for 2021. And I think things just didn't go the Mets' way last year, and I think there's just way too much potential. I mean, they have so many young, great players under 30 that it's going to be tough to keep the Mets out of the playoffs this year. There's not a weak bat in the lineup, and when was the last time you could say that about the Mets? Probably the Delgado, Wright, and all those guys. I can't even remember now. Delgado, Wright, Reyes. I'm a Met fan. I'm a diehard Met fan, but I'm blank. Beltran. Well, there's probably a reason why I forgot Beltran, but they were stopped. And now they have Alonso, Pete Alonso, Michael Conforto, Francisco Lindor, at least for this year. And I guess they're looking to lock him down for the future long term, and we'll see what happens there. Jeff McNeil, Dominic Smith, who has exceeded everyone's expectations at this point. He is a pure hitter, and the Mets are going to suffer because there's no DH this year. And Dominic, who's probably a way better first baseman than Alonso, is going to have to play left field. But I think this will be the last year that happens. And Alonso, he has been improving at first base, but he'd still rather have Smith there. So this is the last year they'll probably have to do that. And I still have horror stories thinking about when they put Lucas Duda out in left field and all the other players they've had out there, because it's always been a Achilles heel for the Mets. Like, we have nowhere to put him. Let's put him in left field. And it's killed us. It reminds me of Mike Piazza at first base. The guy couldn't even catch a pop up behind the bag. But when you have a bat like that, it's got to be in the lineup. So one more year, we just got to work with this Smith Alonso thing, and I guess they'll both be in the lineup come 2022 at their natural positions. Although Alonso is a first baseman, he'll probably be the DH. But let's talk about this year. And then you have Brandon Nimmo, and everyone kept talking about the Mets going after George Springer. Granted, George Springer is an electric player. He has all the tools. But Brandon Nimmo, if he improves his defensive game, is as good an offensive player as anyone in baseball. I mean, his on-base percentage is amazing. He's one of the leaders. He gets on base. He gets the clutch hit. And I don't think Brandon Nimmo gets the response he should get for his efforts. I love Brandon Nimmo, and I was almost upset that they might have signed Springer because I said, were they going to put Nimmo in left? And that probably would have been the better case scenario. But now that you think about it, that was if they were going to have a DH. And then what do you do with Dominic Smith? So for the Mets, I think things happen for a reason, and we'll see what happens there going forward. And then J.D. Davis, he'll probably be the third baseman. I'm sure the Mets always have their eyes open for someone else, but he is a great hitting third baseman. And James McCann, he's no JT Realmuto, but he'll get the job done. I mean, he's coming into his prime. He did well with the White Sox, and for once the Mets can say they have a starting catcher, and that's a good thing. And adding to all these great players during the offseason, like I said, they added McMahon, they brought in Trevor May, and Trevor May is going to play a big part in that bullpen. He's going to be the anchor for Edwin Diaz coming in. I expect big things from Edwin Diaz this year. I think he's just going to be lights out. I think this is the year he puts it all together because the Mets in general are going to have a better club. That would be cultivating a winning attitude, I think. And Edwin, I think, will return to his old form that he had with Seattle. And I'm not giving up on him. And I'm not saying trading Kelenic was a good thing, but the Diaz trade may not be that bad after all. Cano's the one I'm pissed off about, but we'll see what happens going forward. Now, before we go into the 2021 lineup for the Mets, let's go into the history of the Mets. And everyone, for some reason, thinks they're lovable losers. In a way, they earned that reputation in 1962 when they won 40 games and lost 120, which is still the most games ever lost by a team in one season. And they didn't have any winning seasons up until 1969, and either finished last or next to last up till 69. But then we got something we never expected. Lightning struck, and the Mets became the world champions in 1969. And that's not a feat to be taken lightly because they defeated the heavy-hitting Atlanta Braves in the National League Championship Series. And then they went on to knock off the Baltimore Orioles in the World Series. And the Orioles, that lineup and pitching staff could have been one of the best in baseball history. So I don't think it's a miracle that the Mets won 100 games, but I think it's quite an accomplishment. It was one of the bigger upsets in World Series history, in my opinion. And like I said, the Mets were one of the first expansion teams in the National League. They replaced the Brooklyn Dodgers and New York Giants. As you could tell by looking at the uniforms, they combined the Dodgers blue and the Giants orange. And from 62 to 63, the Mets played their home games in the Polo Grounds, which was the Giants' old ballpark. I think they were originally seeking to split time with the Yankees in Yankee Stadium, but the Yankees said no. And then from 64 to 2008, they built one of the first multi-purpose stadiums, Shea Stadium. Place could that upper deck was pretty high up. I'll say that, and it was very windy there. And that's the park I grew up in, so I didn't know any better, so I loved it. But going back and looking at it, you could say, oh my God, it was kind of run down and really couldn't accommodate the crowds. The hallways were narrow, so. But it was home, and Mets used that to their home field advantage. And then in 2009, they went to Citi Field, which is one of the more beautiful ballparks in baseball. Really fan-friendly, and makes you feel like you're at a baseball game when you're at Citi Field. So, like I said, they had the worst record in 62, and then they came and became the Miracle Mets in 69. And overall, the Mets have qualified for the postseason on 9 occasions. They won the World Series twice in 69, 86, and they won the National League pennant 5 times. And since 2000, the Mets have been owned by hedge fund manager Steve Cohen, and changes have been coming. And the purchase price was pretty steep, $2.4 billion. I mean, wow, that's a lot of money. But with everything all the revenue streams that baseball has, I can see how it's probably worth the price for him. Plus, Steve has come out and said it's not about the money. He just wants to have a team that New York can be proud of. I'm sure as long as he doesn't lose a lot of money, he'll be happy just breaking even and running the Mets to the best that he can and turn them into a contender. Now, the team has a winning percentage of .480 lifetime, which isn't that good considering they've been playing over 50 years. But like I said, they've had their runs. but there have been a lot of lean years for the Mets. And some of the biggest blunders in Met history is they didn't draft Reggie Jackson. Instead, they drafted Steve Chilcott, I should say, a catcher, who never ever played a game in the major leagues. So, uh, but the following year, they did acquire the rights to sign Tom Seaver in a lottery. And Seaver was the linchpin. He helped the '69 Miracle Mets win the National League Eastern Division. Like I said, they beat the Braves in the National League for the National League pennant, and then the Orioles to win the World Series. And then they had a couple 500 years after that, so it was really a one-shot deal for the '69 Mets. But in '73, they almost captured Lightning, became the Miracle Mets again. Not because they were that good, but because they were so bad up until like the middle of August. They were buried double digits behind in August, and they were in fifth place. But they came back and they won the division with just an 82 and 79 record. And then they came on strong and they almost beat the A's. They had a 3-2 lead going out to Oakland for Game 6 and 7 in the World Series. But Yogi started Tom Seaver with a shorter day's rest, and it's still talked about today. Should he have or shouldn't he have? But the Mets lost Game 6, and then Game 7, Reggie's heroics with the home run, and they never got on track offensively, and the Oakland A's became the champions. Then things got kind of worse after that. In 1977, the Mets traded the franchise, Tom Seaver. And not only did that hurt the team as they plummeted towards the bottom of the standings, but the fan base stayed away. The Mets had their worst years attendance-wise after they traded Tom, and it just never was the same for at least 5 years. But then they drafted Darryl Strawberry, and he was going to be the next Ted Williams. And Darryl held his own. He was a great player. And one of the faces of the young franchise in 1980 when he was number 1 pick overall. Then in '85, they drafted Dwight Gooden with the number 5 pick in the draft. And that point on, they just added the missing pieces. Keith Hernandez didn't want to come here from St. Louis. St. Louis was looking to dump him. But he did not want to come here. But he was part of the turnaround. And I'm sure to this day he's happy he did come. And then the missing piece was Gary Carter, who they acquired in a trade before the '85 season. And then everything else just fell into place from that point on. Now, coming into the 2021 season, the projected lineup is going to be Brandon Nimmo in center field, Lindor at shortstop, Michael Conforto in right field, Pete Alonso first base, Dominic Smith left field, Jeff McNeil second base, J.D. Davis third base, and James McCann at catcher. And that's a pretty solid lineup. If they can stay healthy, they'll not only be entertaining, but they'll be good. The bench is pretty solid too. Jonathan Villar and Kevin Pillar are two guys that can play the outfield and fill in well. And Luis Guillorme's turned out to be quite the find. He is pretty damn good as a defensive shortstop, and they're going to have to find time for him, and I'm sure they will. You can't play everybody every day. But he's been a pleasant surprise from them. And then they have the pitching staff led by All-World Jacob deGrom. What a force he is. And with the offense they have this year, God, I'd like to see Jacob deGrom win at least 15 games at this point. He deserves it. And then Marcus Stroman would probably be an ace on most teams. He's the second starting pitch coming off. And then Taijuan Walker, who they signed as a free agent. And I'm glad the Mets didn't invest everything in Trevor Bauer, because I think that would kind of upset the apple cart. Salary-wise, with the lineups and the salaries they have, because they still have to sign Conforto. They still have to sign Lindor. So you didn't want to see that happening. And then they'll have David Peterson and Joey Lucchesi rounding out the rotation until Noah Syndergaard comes back. And I guess he'll be back somewhere around mid-season. So it'll be interesting to see what Noah adds to the piece when he does come back. And the bullpen, like I said, I think this is the year Edwin Diaz becomes the lights-out reliever he always was. He had some good moments in 2020, and he showed flashes of what he was before. Now I think he'll have his head on. I think it was just the whole New York stigma attacking him the first year. I think he's just too young and too good. So I expect big things from him. And like I said, Trevor May was the big missing piece as a setup man, probably eighth inning man. And then Miguel Castro and Dellin Betances. You don't even have Betances to be at his all-time peak. He's just good as a sixth or seventh inning man along with Castro. And Jeurys Familia, I don't know what gets in his head sometimes. Sometimes he just has control problems, but we'll see where he goes in this rotation in the bullpen. There won't be much pressure on him, so maybe he can straighten himself out. Like I said, Noah Syndergaard will probably be out till mid-season. And I'm sure he'll be pitching lights out because this is his walk year, and lots riding on it for him contract-wise. And I think Mets may not hesitate to let him go, but we'll see what Noah does. You'd like to see him stay, but they can't sign everybody to all these big contracts. Met players are getting at that age where they're all going to start hitting soon, so something's got to be done. And Robinson Cano, he's out the whole year. Who knows if he'll ever come back due to his drug suspension, so we'll just see from there. And then the future, the Mets actually, despite everyone saying they had a weak farm system, they got 3 prospects everyone's high on. The catcher, Francisco Alvarez, looks like he may be the real deal in a year or two. High hopes for him. Ronnie Mauricio, if Lindor should happen to walk and they can't sign a Trevor Story or whoever else is available on the free agent market, Ronnie Mauricio may be able to step in. And I think that's the reason why they traded Jimenez and oh my God, who was the other guy? Oh, this is what happens when you go blank. The guy's going to play center field. Oh my God. Well, you know who I'm talking about, Met fans. That's why they traded those 2 shortstops, because they know that Ronnie Mauricio is an up-and-coming prospect. And if they sign Lindor, they're locked in for the next 10 years. And then Matthew Allen's a right-handed starting pitcher who they have very, very high hopes for. So we'll see what happens there. The future looks bright for the Mets. I think they have a solid shot at winning the division. Everyone's saying Atlanta. I think it's a coin toss right now. It's going to depend a lot on injuries. And having Carlos Carrasco go down with an injury too, and he might not pitch for a month or two, that's going to hurt for now. So you just don't want more of those injuries stockpiling as the season goes on. But who knows what's going to happen? That's why they play the games. But do not be surprised if that's make the playoffs this year. And they got with the Grom leading the way come playoff time. Anything can happen with these guys. They can start smacking the ball and pitching and just go on that roll that everyone expects them to be. And we'll see. And see, this is what happens when you have brain freeze. I remember Ahmad Rosario was the shortstop that they traded to Jimenez and Rosario. So never give up on me, folks. Okay, that's our 2021 Mets preview. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like it, hit like. If you didn't like it, hit don't like. Always free to leave comments. Remember, on my Facebook group page, Baseball Way of Life, one of these videos is up every day. This month, we're just putting the previews up there. But if you want to catch the other stuff, I'll put up. Yesterday, I had a little commentary on the Matt Harvey signing with Baltimore. Please subscribe to the list, the YouTube page here. Subscribe and you'll be alerted as to when it comes up, and you'll be able to see all the videos that I've done in chronological order. Well, that's it for now. Have a great weekend. If I don't talk to you later, I probably will. But if not, have a great weekend. Remember, play ball. We're only 6 days away from opening day. And as always, adios.